Ah, there you are. Today we'll be having a look at this ink. Because I was approached, well actually I approached Kaweco and I asked them if I could ever review something for them, and they said, well, we know your channel on YouTube. We're going to send you a bunch of pens, and they did. They sent me quite a couple of them. These will be reviewed on my channel. And they also sent me all 8 of their inks, and I thought, you know what? Let's go for that, and let's just put them into the Inkcyclopedia. So these will be reviewed here. These bottles look like the Delta ink bottles. I don't know whether that means they are made by the same company that does them. They're same made in Germany. And today I thought we would start with this one, which I find very fascinating. I like Lit de Thé. I like it so much that I think it was my second Inkcyclopedia entry. And this, I think, is an ink that comes fairly close. It doesn't have that super nice shading that Lit de Thé has, but it definitely has shading. That's quite interesting. A nice brown. I don't know what the official name is. I haven't checked that, but I'll do that and adjust the title in the video. But it's a nice sepia-like brown, and I think that's a very cool color. So let's have a look at that. I hope this is going to be useful. Thanks to Kaweco for sending me this, and I'll see you later. Bye bye. Okay, so here we go with what I shall call Kaweco Brown. I think sepia would be a good qualifier. Let's start with a bit of fine writing, shall we? I find this ink very legible. Even in this relatively dry, fine pen, it remains very legible. And we move to a medium nib. Much wetter. Ink flow is very good. I have no issues with it. Now we go to a very wet pen. Broad. I like this brown. It is a nice sepia tone brown, and it is very nice in the aspect of shading. This could definitely, for me, be a good alternative to Gerbin Lit de Thé. That has really nice shading, but the one downside to that ink, I find, is that it is fairly dry. And I think this ink is a bit nicer in that regard. It flows very well. I'm not sure it's the wettest ink I've ever seen, but as you can see, it's still a bit dry there. I like this ink. I'm fairly excited in that regard. Let's do some flex writing. There we go with some railroading. I did that on purpose to see how well the ink keeps up. And here we go with the standard failure of the flex pen. That's a really big dot on that eye there. Once the ink starts to flow again, I think we really get to a fairly nice flow. But it remains an issue. This remains a... pushing that down again. Remains a bit of an issue with writing. Okay. Of course, always just when you explain that flow is good, the pens give up to 3 passes. Ooh, 1. It looks really disgusting like this here, very mushy, but I think it is going to improve as it dries up a bit. I think while we are at it, we may well do some really fat writing. How about we just write the letter B. It is not a lit de thé, but it is definitely the ink that is closest to that of all the inks I've ever seen. It has that weird, almost greenish brown tinge, which I appreciate. It's not yet dry, it's close. Let's do a bit of medium writing while we are at it. Okay. I think we can do a second pass there. He sighed wearily. There we go. And then I think the time has come for that moment you have all been waiting for. The Tardif test. And, of course, the brown benchmark. And I think this is dry. That means we can have a look at the bastard brush. As well as the eyedropper of death. I'm not sure how well you can see this, but I definitely see that greenish tint right there. I'm going to cap the bottle of ink because with my motor skills that is a necessity. I can do a third pass right now. And there we go. And then I think we can start working on our scorecard while all of this is drying so that we can interpret the final tests. Cleaning. Well, to be honest, I have had no problems cleaning this ink out of my pens. Bleed through. That is something we will have to assess later. Color. Well, brown, I would say. Well, brown sepia. It's not necessarily a very archetypal brown. Shading. Now there's a good one. I find the shading quite impressive. I see quite a lot. Let me zoom in here a bit so that you can see that a bit better yourself, maybe. If you look at this broad, wet nib, I think you really see some nice shading. Take this L, for example. Some good stuff going on. That's what I meant with the lit de thé. It's a very nicely shading ink. I really like that. I set Apache Sunset as the full marks for this ink, for this factor, but I'm going to give this the same score. Apache Sunset is unique, and I don't think any ink is ever going to match that. So henceforth, if there is this amount of shading, I'm going to use that. Flow, I would say, well, no, flow's a 2. No, you know what? Flow is a 1. I had a problem with the Flex pen, but all the other pens, they did it straight away, so I think that's pretty good. And there's feathering. That's something we will have to assess after the copy of paper. And there is drying time. Well, drying time is somewhere in the middle range. It's not a very wet ink, nor is it excessively dry. Waterproofness. Now there's a good one that we have to assess here. I find this fairly waterproof. I mean, look at this. This was just a brush, and I can still read every word that's on there. I'm interested to see what happened to this really fat writing and a lot of water. Yeah, that suffered. But even then, pretty much the entire shape of the letter is still there. Then I think in this case we can give the waterproofness, well, let's give it a 2. Although we can see it here, I mean, this has suffered. No, you know what? I can't make up my mind today. I'm sorry. I'm going to give that a 1 just because it's still all there. I mean, it is, even this one, you can still see everything, so I think that's good enough. Okay. Now, before we do our comparison with another ink, I think it's time to have a look at some copier paper. Let's remove this one and put it away. And then we take our copier paper, place it here, and we grab this. Okay, some fine writing. What does the fox say? If that has no meaning to you, you must YouTube it. Yes, that is a verb now. Italic, and then we have flex. I always dread this moment. Failing pens, terror. Well, well, well. Everything writes. And it keeps going and going and going until the railroad's good. What does the fox say? There we have some really fat writing. Fat writing. It's always nice to do some fat writing. I just love it. I mean, when you think about it, who doesn't love him some fat writing? Oh dear, I don't know what type of alphabet this is. This started off as just this started off as foundational. This is done very quickly, there are many errors there, but and then it turned into some strange Old English script which has way too many curvatures. I don't know. Gothic bastard, maybe? Anyway, as long as you have fun, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. I think that's all very interesting. So what do we see? Well, I don't know about you, but I would say that this ink feathers just a smidgen. I like the word smidgen, I don't get to use it a lot. Smidgen, a smidgen of feathering. Whoops, sorry, the wrong way around. But in normal writing, even in this very wet broad, it seems to be under control. It's really with this excessive flow, you saw the same thing there, and that you get some feathering. So I think feathering is quite good. That means that what we have to assess is bleed through, which is severe for the flex writing. You see it in the italic, in the broad, a little bit in the medium, almost nothing in the fine. But this is very pronounced, especially in the fat writing. Fat writing, you see a lot of bleed through. On the Rhodia paper, there is definitely bleed through for the flex writing too. And this is Rhodia. I mean, this is good paper. 3 passes, but that's, I mean, excessive. Having a look at those 3 passes, I think you get a nice idea of this very, well, fairly dark brown to this extremely dark brown, almost grayish color. So, okay, what remains is feathering. Well, it was only, okay, middle score. Bleed through. It's not too good, but it's not terrible. It's definitely not good. Okay, inkage. So overall, and I mean the bleed through was of course mainly in really excessive ink use. 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9, 10. That doesn't sound too bad. Inkage of 10. Now I'd like to compare this ink to another ink, and I came up with the following. So what we have is here is Visconti. No! This is Kaweco Brown Benchmark. No, wait. What? Okay. Brown Sepia and here we have Visconti Sepia Brown. Which is a little bit browner. This is, I mean, a lighter brown. This is, I think this leans a bit more towards the green end of the spectrum. This is a very brown. Both inks are very nice. Both inks are inks that I like a lot. As I said, this Kaweco brown is a little bit more along the lines of the Gerbin Lidité. So there you have it. I would say that what we have here is an Inkcyclopedia entry for Kaweco Brown. I thank Kaweco for sending me this. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.